Good morning, and Happy New Year. I'm so excited for today's session. And we are going to get started in just a minute. It's exactly 10 a.m. my time. So we're going to see if we can get a couple minutes, let people join. So grab your beverage. I know I always say that, grab your beverage. And since this one's a lot of kind of thinking and processing, I would invite you to turn on your favorite playlist in the background. Nothing too spicy, but if you want to have a little bit of music on in the background, that might help reduce any distractions. So while we wait for everybody to join, I'm going to ask everybody a fun question. What is one thing that you did for yourself during the holidays? What is one fun thing that you did for yourself? It doesn't even have to be fun, to be honest. Like, it's not about what other people think is fun, but what is one thing that you did for yourself during the holidays? I'm going to put the question in chat as well. And I'll go ahead and answer. So, sorry, it's not sending. Oh, no, it did. Yeah. So for me, I've been working out quite a bit and I've been very sore. So yesterday I went and got a deep tissue massage, which I think is helping a ton, but not with the soreness. I'm actually more sore today. But yes, that's our starting question is, what is one thing you did for yourself during the holiday? And again, make sure you've got your journal, your notebook, whatever you're using to write in, because there's going to be lots of fun prompts today. And if you feel like answering this one or any of them in chat, go ahead. There's no pressure to do so, but I would love to know what you did do for yourself during the holiday. And if you can't think of something, then I'm going to challenge you to do something nice for yourself today. You bought yourself a gift. Hi, May. Thank you for joining and congratulations. Buying yourself a gift actually feels so good. I hope that you really enjoyed whatever it is that you got for yourself. And if anybody else feels like putting in chat, and for those just joining, what I did for myself was get a deep tissue massage because I've been so sore, and I don't know if that was a good thing because I'm more sore today. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and give a little bit of a welcome intro before we get into the prompts, just because I want to set the context a little bit. The reason we're doing this session is honestly, one of our viewers requested a little bit of self-discovery. We were talking about their purpose and just them investing in focusing on what's important to them. And they were really struggling to articulate what they felt like they needed to prioritize for the year. And so they asked for a little bit of help with self-discovery. So that is the genesis of today. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that there's people in all different age groups that I talk to that feel dissatisfied with their lives. And you hear about it online. But when you think about it, it makes sense because a lot of people reach adulthood and start working. They might, get married, they might have kids, but eventually people tend to notice that their lives are running on autopilot, right? Work, eat, clean, repeat, basically. And then a lot of people start to feel like, and I'm curious if this is how you feel as well, that this isn't what you imagined for yourself. Like you're kind of stuck in a cycle, and some people start to dream of escaping or starting over. And maybe you're not in that extreme of a space, but it's always good to check in and see, are you where you intended to be? Because a lot of times this can be a sign of misalignment. And that misalignment is a disconnect between the life you're living and the life that you actually want. It happens to a lot of people, but it's good to have these checkpoints to just check in with yourself and see, are you on track with what you really want for yourself? Because it's easy to find yourselves in jobs, relationships, and routines that you didn't necessarily choose. They just kind of happened. But a lot of people don't know what they would do differently. So this is, a good checkpoint for that, because a lot of people I know personally feel like something is missing and they want something more, but they can't put their finger on what it is. So if that's you, you're in the right place. And understanding yourself, your values, your passions, your priorities is the first step to uncovering what's missing and where you're out of balance. And that's what we're doing today. So life is meant to be about purpose, balance, and passion. And if you're not living that way, this is, again, a huge first step in getting on track to building the life that you want. So we're going to dive in today and start figuring out what lights you up and how to realign your life with what matters most to you. So, before I get into the deep prompts, I'm going to ask you to set an intention for this session. Some of what I just said may have prompted some thoughts and reactions. And those thoughts and reactions might be like, oh my gosh, that's so me, or oh my gosh, that's not me at all. That's okay. But thinking about, what I just said or why you're here, set an intention for this session today. And, this is another great thing you're doing for yourself and celebrate that, but just really decide what you're doing, with this time today. And while you are writing that down, and if you want to put that in chat, that's great. And if not, that's totally fine. But make sure that you're capturing that in your journal. I am going to share my screen, which I did get working. For those of you who are in the last one where I couldn't screen share, it works now. All right. So, what I've got on this screen right now is what I'm calling the 6 dimensions of life. And this is part of the Sixfold Path. And those 6 dimensions are creation and expression, connection and relationships, growth and learning, service and contribution, health and well being, and spirituality and meaning. And even if you're not traditionally religious, there's a lot of opportunity to have spirituality and meaning in life, something that's bigger than yourself. I'm not sure what that might look like for you because I honestly think it looks different for a lot of people. Certainly looks different for me from what, society says it might look like, but what does it look like for you? So, as you look at each of these 6 dimensions, your first exercise is in your journal to indicate how full each of these 6 dimensions is in your life, how fully present, how fully realized they are in your life. Picture it like a gas tank filling up almost. And really think about where you've been giving your energy. They may not be the same answer. So, which of these 6 dimensions have you really invested your energy in? Once you finish that part, I am going to ask you, and this is kind of a gut reaction thing, but as I was listing the 6 or as you look at them, I want you to put a little star next to the one that like pulls on you, the one that kind of draws you in, where it's maybe the one that's the most intriguing, the one that you wish you were doing, the one where you're like, yes, I am doing that. And that's because that's the most important to me. But which of these really just lights you up, right? You look at it, you're like, aha. And if you do want to put that in chat too, that's great. But again, no pressure. And you may notice that work isn't one of the 6 dimensions. And that's because work isn't your purpose. Work is something you do. And if you are lucky or if you've designed things well, the dimensions that matter the most to you are where your work is as well. But work can span multiple of these dimensions. Learning for Jeremy. Yes. Hi, Jeremy. Thank you for joining. Yes, that definitely makes sense. I can see that. I've been mostly drawn to creation and expression and service and contribution personally. And I know that a lot of times, yeah, those both just fill my tank. And a lot of times I feel like I sacrifice creation and expression for service and contribution because I feel like that's more material. But those are my 2 favorites. And I know that I've definitely sacrificed many of the other quadrants in order to focus on those 2. I say quadrants, but there's 6 of them, but I think you guys get the gist of it. All right, so now we're going to get into some of the more in-depth journaling prompts, and this is a reflection. So we're going to ask you to look back, and this is kind of uncovering some of your hidden passions. And the first question is, what did you love to do as a child or a young adult? What brought you joy? What made you so happy when you were a kid? If you got to do this, it was like the best day ever. What did you love to do? Mine So easy. I love to be left alone so I could read. That's all I wanted to do. And then, yes, I wanted to be left alone so I could read. And if this one's hard for you, that's okay. I would say challenge yourself to find something. Some of us are a little older, so it is hard to think back, but even then, mine came to me, like, right away. And the second question on reflecting back is, how did you play when you were a child or a young adult even? And that could be anything, right? For me, I wasn't huge into play, if I'm being very, very transparent, but my 2 ways of playing were I actually liked going out and riding bikes with friends. I thought that was really fun, and I also liked kind of, like, exploring, like, finding new places to go, like, in the neighborhood. I also liked building, like, this is gonna sound terrible, but, like, these little mud streams in the garden. I tore up the garden so I could build an aqueduct, but anyway, exploring and building. And again, if you feel comfortable putting any of these in chat, I think it's always fun to see what other people were kind of into. This next one's a little harder and it might feel a little uncomfortable, but that's okay. Discomfort is okay. What dreams or activities have you set aside? Things you used to enjoy or things you dreamed of that you set aside for whatever reason? You decided it wasn't practical, it didn't serve our capitalist goals. What did you set aside? May says, "I loved riding my bike too and climbing trees, etcetera. Loved being outside." Oh, I love that, May. May, I know you're in Texas as well, and, even with the heat, I still think we get plenty of time where we can enjoy the outside. We're pretty lucky, I think. And when did you feel truly alive or in the moment? And I'd say as you look back, this could be childhood, young adulthood, but sometime that felt idyllic, sometime you might be nostalgic for, something that feels like a good time in your life or a good memory. During that time, when did you feel the most alive or in the moment? What's funny is, I'm such an introvert and I talk about how creativity and service are what draws me. But when I think about this question, I get a different answer. And when I think back to high school or college, I'd say I personally felt the most alive when I was having new experiences with friends. And so, you know, I like that this question's a little challenging because I actually think it brings out another dimension of what matters to us. And if you feel like sharing in chat, that's awesome, but no pressure. But I do love to know what kind of lights people up. So I'd love to hear what made you feel alive or in the moment. It doesn't have to be high school or college, it could be further back. But that's really what came to me is I really enjoy those college memories of like discovering new foods or my friend who made me go skiing and I was terrible at it, but I loved being terrible at it. It was very fun. All right, we're going to move on to the next section, which is coming back into the now a little bit. So, as you think about where you are and who you are now, what activities, people, or moments energize you? When I think about feeling energized, I'd say that now and probably for the last 10 years or so, I feel the most energized when I've helped someone, when I'm helping someone and when I've helped someone. And the other time I feel energized is when I've made something that I'm really excited about. Like if I've made a new framework or written a book, but when I've made something that I feel so excited about, that's the other time I feel really, really energized. And if you want to, you can reflect back on the 6 dimensions we talked about and kind of mentally be thinking about, oh, Gabby just mentioned service and creativity, just kind of think about how they map back, but we have time to do that later as well. And for those of you who are on the live, or even if you're watching the replay later and you want to comment, I would love to know what helps you feel energized. I love the fun stuff. And even more so, what drains you or feels misaligned? Which activities, which people, which moments really just feel draining? They might be energy vampires, things you just genuinely don't enjoy and, you know, don't enjoy to the extent that it feels actively negative. Jeremy's saying some of these are difficult for you to answer. I'm so sorry, Jeremy. Is there anything I can do to help with that? And some of the, words like energize, misaligned, some of these are pretty strong, and not everybody feels everything as dramatically as I do. So for you, it might be, a more toned down version, like what makes you feel warm and fuzzy? What gives you a good vibe? What's a nice, pleasant experience? So I think maybe, for those of you who are a little bit more quiet inside than I am, definitely think of words that are more aligned with you. Jeremy says no, all me. Okay. And again, everybody can take some of these prompts offline and sit with them if there's a little bit more introspection required. And then I'll also make the slides available again, like I did in the last session. Okay, what drains you or feels misaligned? Um, I'm going to be super vulnerable and transparent. I'm not huge on being the emotionally supportive person for other people. So as much as I say I like to be of service, people then want to come to me and talk about their feelings. That is not what I'm good at or here for. And I tend to feel very misaligned when people come to me for like emotional talking. Like I think it's important and I want them to get that support, but I recognize that I'm not the best person for that. So that is not something that I volunteer for. I'm here to help in more practical and material ways. All right. This next one, I just want your gut. Don't self monitor. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you change in your life? You do not have to share this in chat, but of course, I'd love it if you did. But what would you change in your life? And like I said, do not self monitor. Don't be like, that's impractical or I'm ashamed of thinking that. Like, write it in your journal and nobody will ever see it. You can write down whatever the heck you want. It could be just whatever comes to your mind. If I could change this, what is it? Because even if you can't change it, it's an insight that we're going to use later. I'd say this one's hard for me just because like I am constantly changing a lot of things in my life. Like last year I wanted to lose weight, so I did. And then I was miserable in my job and I got laid off and I started a new business. So I'd say the only thing I would change is that I want my business to get to the point where it's financially self-sustaining this year. But other than that, I really like my life. I would like more financial freedom. I'd say like that would be my gut answer is just more financial freedom so I can travel, so I can help people in my family more. But that's the only thing I would change is more financial freedom. All right. Let's move on to this next one. This is dream. So, if nothing were stopping you, if you had no limits, what would you do? And I really want you guys to be journaling this in a place where you can refer back to it later. We have a session next week, which is purpose building, that will leverage these responses. And then also for any goal setting that you do, this is going to be really key. So make sure that as you're journaling these and writing down your responses, that it's something that you can easily access later. But yes, if nothing were stopping you, if you had no limits, what would you do? For me, I would travel a lot so I could have new experiences. I would publish all the books that are in my backlog, and I would get movie contracts so that I could turn some of my things into movies, and I'd build a pool. My other one might sound silly, but I actually want, like, me and all my family and friends to be able to have, like, houses all next to each other. Like, I'd love to buy everybody a house, and all of us live in the same neighborhood. All right. Now that's your big dream. And knowing that and kind of keeping that in the back of your head, I want you to picture your ideal day, week, or year. And whichever of those sounds most accessible to you, Mason, that would be so cute, right? Like I would love that. And then we could have like the barbecues and anyway, I just think that would be amazing. Okay, so picture your ideal day, week, or year. And again, pick the one that sounds most accessible, the one that you can imagine picturing. Really visualize it. Visualize that ideal day, week, or year. And as you visualize it, think about what are you doing and how do you feel? I want you to picture it before you start writing and really be in that vision. And I want you to have no shame or judgment on yourself when you write this down. That's a lot of what self-monitoring is we think something and then we're like, "Oh, we shouldn't think that," or, "Oh, that's not right." Like, I can't just play video games all day, but this is another no limits question. So don't back off from whatever comes to mind. Whatever your true answer is, without self judgment, that's what you want to picture. And then once you have that locked in, write down what that ideal day, week, or year is, and also write down what you're doing and how you feel. This next question is about your values. So, what values or desires keep coming up for you? And that can be in life, or it could be themes that you're seeing in this session, or both. So, what values or desires keep coming up for you? And I've been kind of transparent with my answers along the way. So, you can see that for me, there's a lot of desire for freedom and there's a lot of valuing financial freedom and valuing service and being able to support other people, and also valuing experiences and creation. And so as you think back to your answers and as you think back to just how you're feeling, throughout the year, last year, what values or desires keep coming up? If you had asked me this a year ago, one of my, I'm just going to say darker answers would have been not having to go to certain meetings anymore, not having to explain things to my coworkers that they should already know. That is a desire. And that was a sign of misalignment. And so look for some of the darker answers as well. And it's not just about work. Again, think about the 6 dimensions on the sixfold path that we talked about. This includes relationship, creativity. This is really about what you want. And as you consider those 6 dimensions and think about your values and desires, I want you to picture a life that is aligned with that. What would a life aligned with these values and desires look like? And as you're thinking about that and writing it down, please don't get discouraged if that's not what your life currently looks like. There's going to be some sort of gap. It could be big, it could be little. Honestly, that's all we're doing today is identifying what's really important to you so that you can start working on how to get there. Because again, a lot of people feel very misaligned in their lives, but understanding where you want to be is the first step in actually getting there. Now that you've kind of seen what you might want in life and you're starting to anchor into what's really important to you, what does that reveal to you about what might be incomplete or unfulfilled in your life? And as you think about that, also think about which dimensions of the sixfold path or any other framework that resonates with you, but which areas might feel neglected. And I'll share a little bit as you're thinking. Hopefully, my chattering is not distracting you. It's intended to help. But last year at this time, I knew my health was being neglected. So, health and wellness, um, that section was being neglected. And I spent a lot of time focusing on that last year. And I can say that where I am this year, I am so proud of what I've done with that. And I feel so much better. And so as you look at the sixfold path and you think about which areas I'm neglecting, that's okay. That just tells you where you might want to focus. And this year, I can say that I want to focus more on my relationships. I'd say that that's something where that's one of the first things to go for me is relationships and health and wellness when I'm busy with other things. So now that my health and wellness is in a sustainable pattern this year, I'm focusing more on relationships. If you want to share in chat, please, as always, feel free, but no pressure. This is very personal, but know that this is a safe space if you do feel like sharing. And if you at any point want me to flip back to the graphic of the sixfold path, I totally can. And it's fine if you screenshotted it as well. So just let me know if you want me to go back to any other slides, including that one. So, as you reflect back on your responses so far as we've been doing this work, which area of your life feels more meaningful or exciting to expand? May says, I feel like my job is very service contribution heavy, but I like to also focus on service and contribution outside of my work. May, I love that. That's such an amazing thing to identify. And I love that you've really got that spirit of giving like that. What's interesting is, the way this question is framed, I actually have a different answer than I had on the previous slide. I know I said I'm focusing on relationships this year, but if I look at it this way, what feels most meaningful or exciting to expand? Creativity. Like really just diving all in on my creativity this year, not holding back, not self-monitoring, not being like it's 10% of my life because I have to do all this other stuff. Like if you ask me what would be the most exciting dimension, I would say creating and learning. I've spent so much time at the end of last year, like the last 6 months learning, and I'd like to create and continue that depth of learning this year, which to me, I think a lot of the exploring I like to do is tied to learning, but that feels exciting. So as you think about which area you want to expand, what would growth in that area look like this year? And so, May, you might think about what would it look like to expand service beyond work this year? For me, what would really diving into my creativity look like that's different from what I've done in the past? And as you think about that, turn that into defining one clear, measurable goal to expand a meaningful area of your life this year. What's one thing you can do? And when we look at a goal, don't think about the outcome. Think about something you're like an action that you can take. So you want your goals to be tied to actions, not outcomes. What's one clear goal to expand that meaningful area this year? Okay, and I know that my next thing says specific outcome. And I just said, don't worry about outcomes. You get what I'm saying. Like that outcome is the action, not the result. That's probably a better way to say it. So write it in a way that feels inspiring, not overwhelming. By the end of this year, I will something. So let's say that my goal would be to, work towards a movie contract. This year, it might be getting connected with, someone who could help me in the movie industry or writing a screenplay, like something I can control is the goal. And how are we doing on pacing? Do you guys need more time on this slide or are you ready to move on to the next slide? Okay, yeah, definitely. We'll do at least one more minute. I would also definitely recommend to anybody that if some of these questions are bringing up a lot of thoughts, or if they're a little harder to answer, take this as a beginning and spend some time over the next few days, few weeks doing some deeper journaling on some of these topics if they raised a lot of thoughts and or feelings for some of you. This is actually a lengthy process where this workshop is genuinely just kind of a launching point for you to go deeper into any of these areas. And while we want to come out of today with again one thing you can take away to start working on what's important, it doesn't mean that there's not more inner work and introspection that might be helpful. Now that you've identified the one meaningful area and that first goalpost on that, really anchor into your deeper why here and try to articulate for yourself, why does this goal feel important to you? And how does this goal align with the kind of life you want to create? These statements are so important. When we talk about motivation and the science of motivation, it's all about intrinsic factors, about your own values, your purpose. And as you go through the year and you're sustaining this motivation for your goal, it's going to be so helpful to anchor back into your why. Why are you doing it? What is it going to mean for your life? And so, if you can clearly articulate that today, it's going to be so concretely set in both your head and your heart. And as you go through, our productivity framework for the year, but everything you do throughout the year, anchoring back to that why is going to help keep you on track. So, how does this goal align with the kind of life you want to create? And I didn't put this specific question on here. I asked it in a different way, but there's a question that comes up, as people are entering different life stages and making pretty big decisions about what they want to be doing. What do you want to have written on your gravestone is one of my favorite challenge questions. And anybody knows me in real life knows I've been saying this for the last couple months. And, as you think about the life you want to create, that's both about the life you want to experience as you're going through it, but also about the legacy that you're leaving behind. And how does this contribute to your legacy? And that's a really powerful question. And sometimes people struggle with thinking about the life in the current thing because there's still a lot of confusing messages and things to unlearn. And sometimes thinking about the after, thinking about your legacy and, really getting some distance from the now can help crystallize what actually matters to you. Because obviously, I want a life of connection and family and service and financial freedom. But there's that other dimension of creation for me. They're not in conflict, but my legacy, what I want written on my gravestone is she built worlds we wanted to live in. And everything I do is aligned with that. And I can't tell you how much satisfaction and enjoyment comes from knowing that every single thing I'm doing is a step towards my purpose and is building my legacy. And I want that for all of you. All right. I know that was really intense and kind of fast, 41 minutes to go on this big introspective journey, but this is, again, one huge step on this path that we'll be doing together this year. So thank you so much for joining and taking time to reflect on what matters really is that first step towards creating a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling. Knowing what matters to you means that you can make decisions that are aligned constantly. And again, it feels really good to be living that way. So now it's time to turn insight into action. So after this, we have our productivity kickoff session at 11 Central. So it's our first productivity session for the year. And this is where we set up structure and habits to support growth and goals in 2025. So we'll wrap up here in like a minute or two, and then you'll get a little bit of a break before the productivity session. Next week, we actually have a session on purpose building. So you'll take everything that we talked about here and really start crystallizing it and defining that so that you can really get a good plan on how, bigger picture to align your goals and actions with a sense of purpose. All right, so hopefully you guys are feeling energized that we can make 2025 the year that you take charge of your path in building a life that is all about who you really are and what matters to you. So I can't wait to see what y'all are going to do. I am so excited that you took this time today to be thoughtful and really reflect on this. And our productivity framework for the year is really set up and designed to help people keep building towards their bigger goals and not just living life on autopilot, but living life very intentionally. And this introspection is that first step. So thank you again for joining. And thank you for participating in chat and for doing this deep work. And if there's any other kinds of sessions that I can offer and some of these guided workshops I can offer that will help y'all do this, please let me know. Send me a note, drop it in the comments. But if there's more types of sessions that would actually really, really help you, I would love to know that. So I'm also putting 2 links in the chat. At least I'm trying to. I think the last one got cut off, so give me just a second. If you enjoyed the session, if you sign up for our newsletter, then you'll get, weekly emails about what we have going on with She Makes It Work and also kind of reminders and stuff for the session so you don't miss out. And then if you do want to support the channel, consider signing up for our Patreon. So that you can support the work we're doing here. And there's more insight information and more insights available on Patreon as well. So thank you again. And hopefully I will see you in a few minutes for the 11 o'clock productivity kickoff for the year. Thanks so much, everybody.